Hey everyone, thanks for joining me for today's video. I have to tell you, I smell so good today. I have on one of the fragrances that we're going to talk about in this video. I've pulled 10 from my collection that have me mentally prepped for the week to come. I'm in mid-January. January and February tend to be the coldest months of the year here in Central Virginia. We have some really super frigid temperatures for us. I know some of y'all like in the Arctic ring are really under some crazy weather and you've got feet and feet of snow falling in different places. So nothing like that, friends. I'm talking about like it's going to dip down into the 20s and the teens in the evening hours, and it's not going to get above high 30s during the day on some days next week. And for us, that is super cold. So then I think about winter and the fact that I don't want to leave my house during the winter. I'm less inclined to jump in my vehicle and go run errands. I kind of just want to stay home and do things here. And then it made me think about like, what are the moods that you have when you're in your home environment? Some of these are my moods and maybe some of these are your moods, but I thought we would just have a little bit of fun today and highlight some fragrances that don't get a lot of attention on YouTube. So jumping right in, I would say this is a fragrance that had its moment, and sometimes people still talk about this, and then I think others have just forgotten about it. So the mood that I'm going for with this fragrance is, it has just snowed. You have woken up on a Saturday morning. The earth outside is a marshmallow world. Don't we love that song from the holidays? It's a marshmallow world in the winter. Hint about what's to come. You've got your really cozy, amazing barefoot robe on. Friends, I just got my first barefoot robe. Is that what it's called? Pardon me, Barefoot Dreams? Is that it? That's the name of the brand? I've had lots of different kinds of robes. I have a lot of robes. I have summer robes. I have fall robes. I have winter robes. I have robes that I could probably like ice skate in because they're so heavy. But I wanted a robe that had some warmth to it and had some weight, but wasn't suffocating or that didn't make me sweat a lot. So I got my first Barefoot Dreams robe. And I'm like, what have I been waiting for all my life? Why didn't I buy this 10 years ago, 15 years ago? I'm loving it. So anyway, I have mine in this pale, I think it's called like a pinky rose kind of some name or other, dusty rose, whatever. Point being, it's a marshmallow world outside. The snow is freshly fallen. The entire universe looks like it's coated in a soft white blanket. The sky is still gray from the weather that has come through. You know, the sun hasn't come out yet. And so you're in your comfy robe inside in the warmth. You've just gotten your cup of coffee or your hot tea or whatever morning beverage you desire. And you just plan to stay in your PJs and your robe for a while. What's a while for you? For me, if it has hit 11 a.m. and I am still in my robe, I gotta get going, y'all. But that's a long time for me. So it's that kind of lazy morning, and I want a scent to match that mood, that cozy, at home, like fresh and light mood that the snow brings on. It's a nostalgic thing and all of that. So I'm gonna go with Dela de Marshmallow from Kyse Perfumes. This is an indie perfume house that does I think they're all, if not mostly, gourmand fragrances. Check them out. The perfumer is Terry Bozo. I've shared in the past I'm not in love with the bottles, but I look past that for this because the fragrance in here is one of the most beautiful photorealistic gourmand fragrances that I have ever tried. When I tell you that this smells like a fresh bag of marshmallows, when you first rip the bag open, there's a little sort of like wisp of powder that comes up out of the bag, tickles your nose. It's sugary, it's powdery, it's vanillic, it's delicious, and it makes your mouth water. That's what this fragrance is. And this one is a powerhouse of a fragrance. I forgot to say, I picked 10 powerhouse fragrances. 10 powerhouse for winter. They're going to last all day. They're going to take you through the day. They will not leave you until you wash it off. Or something close to that. Something close to that, okay? Maybe take you into the evening hours. This is a fragrance that is fantastic on its own. And if you don't want to smell like a realistic marshmallow, you can layer it with either powdery fragrances or vanilla fragrances to play around with what kind of scent profile you'll get and still smell sweet, angelic, cozy, like a warm hug with candy sprinkled on top. It's fantastic and it's not expensive. Let me check out the price for you. Okay, so I'm looking on the Kyse website and it says that they are going to reopen January 20th. I think this video will post on or about that date. So check out the website itself, or you can also shop for these fragrances now on luckyscent.com. And the notes listed are marshmallow, vanilla, and sugar. And I would probably add some touch of powderiness to that lineup. A 60 ml, which is what this is $85. And I think for what you get here, and this being a long-lasting, really fantastic marshmallow fragrance, it's hard to go wrong with that price. So I fully give this a thumbs up. It's back ordered on Lucky Scent as of the day that I'm filming this, which means you put your order in, and whenever they're able to fulfill it, it says within 14 days. So in about 2 weeks, this should ship out. And I think it's worth it. Fantastic fragrance for that freshly fallen snow, cozy, stay in your pajamas and enjoy the cold and the snow from inside your house type of mood for winter.
French, this means like boys, and they say it as comme des garçons.
Comme des garçons. Comme des garçons. Comme des garçons. We've had a few jokes about the French pronunciation police. I try, friends, I try. And that's the best that I can do. So we're going to go with Comme des Garçons. Nomad tea for the next mood. And the mood is it's later in the day. The skies are still gray. You're in this sort of brooding, contemplative mood. And you just want to curl up with a good book by the window as the snow continues to fall. So it's like blizzard conditions, and you want something that's a little bit deep yet uplifting and put you in a really thoughtful mood. Nomad tea is fantastic for that type of situation. This has some citrus at the top. I believe it's a lemon note, and it settles down into green tea and mint and woodiness. And when I tell you this is one of the most interesting unisex fragrances that I have tried, that is what I mean. It's sort of really squarely in the middle. You do have to be a tea lover to enjoy this. You have to enjoy, did I mention mint? There's a mint note in the fragrance, and there's a woodiness to it and the base that gives it some depth and that sort of brooding nature. And I love this for feeling contemplative. I could totally see curling up with a big cozy blanket by a window in a comfortable club leather chair. You know what I mean? The old school library, big cozy chairs where the leather's really worn in from body oils and all of that. And you just curl up in your chair and read a good book that sort of takes you away. And every once in a while, you look up at the window and the snow's still falling, maybe bordering on blizzard conditions. This is great for that. Nomad tea. Another one that's pretty, well, all of these fragrances are long lasting. And so let me just say that so I don't have to keep repeating it. But great for that sort of brooding, contemplative frame of mind when the weather is frightful outside. So let's say so far it is a Friday, you got the day off from work, or the kids have a day off from school, everyone's at home, right? So you woke up with that pajama fragrance, you transitioned into your cuddle up and read fragrance, and then you transition into an evening fragrance for Friday night. And you want to put a fire on because the blizzard's still raging outside. Everyone just wants to hang out inside. You light candles, you put a fire on, you make hot cocoa, and you want to smell sultry and comforting and deep and cozy all at the same time, like a sexy cozy kind of a situation. I'm going to tell you, one of the unsung heroes from the Initio lineup is the gorgeous Blessed Baraka. Wow. This is a fantastic woody, ambery, vanillic fragrance with some spicy touches to it. If you smelled Angel Share or Ojan or Caltet Night or one of those types of like fall apple pie, boozy types of fragrances, this would be almost like a more subdued version of those, not in potency and not in longevity and strength, friends, but in terms of leaning too much into like the cinnamon, apple pie, spice direction. If you remove that facet of those fragrances or tone that down significantly and just focus on the vanilla, the amber, the woods, you might get something like Blessed Baraka. Now, it's, according to Fragrantica, considered to be a more male-leaning fragrance, a more masculine-leaning fragrance. I think it's amazing on me. I think it smells great on hubby. He's not that into it, unfortunately, and so it is on my shelf and I want it. But I can imagine the mood where there's a huge fire roaring. I'm not talking about a gas fireplace. I'm talking about a wood burning fireplace with a crackling fire. And there's a sort of scent that comes out of that. This doesn't smell smoky. But if you imagine that in the air, if you imagine that you've got lots of candles, like a candlelit space, along with the golden hue of the fire that's sort of dancing, and we're all hanging out in our cowl neck sweaters or fleece hoodies or whatever people are wearing to stay warm and keeping it cute, I might be wearing Blessed Baraka in a situation like that. This is so beautiful. It's so deep. It's almost like in the sticky ambery direction. Beautiful, sweet vanilla, sandalwood base. There's some spices in here, but not in the direction of the other fragrances that I mentioned. Those are pretty heavy in the spicy direction. So for me, this is more of a fragrance that is in unisex territory with a masculine lean. However, people have different perceptions of that and what it means and what sits where. So I would think the general public might consider this to be a little bit more masculine leaning, but it is a fabulously crafted fragrance, really performs well on the skin, and just has, like I said, that combination of sexy and cozy for a dark evening at home. Beautiful. So the weekend continues and we go into Saturday morning. Perhaps the smokiness from the fire that you burned last night is still lingering in the air. The candles have died down and you are in a meditative mood. In fact, maybe you drank a little too much wine last night and you want to repent and do some exercise to get you back in the right space. But because you have a little bit of a headache, you can't do too much exercise. You just want to meditate and do some yoga and have some quiet time. This is in front of the fireplace. You move the coffee table aside. You put out your yoga mat and you sit there quietly and peacefully. What fragrance might you have on? Now, here is a fragrance that I've heard no one talk about, and it's hanging tough in my collection. This is Casbah from Robert Piguet. Are you familiar with this line of fragrances? And if you have Casbah or you've smelled it, let us know in the comments. We don't hear about this one a lot. And I admit, I don't reach for this very often. I've worn this perhaps twice since I purchased it, and I just can't bring myself to move it along to any other location because there's something so unique and intoxicating about this that it is one of those like super special occasion-ish types of fragrances, meaning that you have to be in a very specific mood, especially as a lady, to reach for this. I think gentlemen might reach for this more readily. It is considered a more masculine fragrance, so I want to be clear about that. I think this is definitely masculine in comparison to Nomad Tea and in comparison to Blessed Baraka. That said, I still think that this is beautiful, and I could see myself wearing this in the occasion that I shared, or if I'm going to some sort of late night event where you want to have a mysterious smell on, but there's also this really calming aspect of it. The fragrance smells like it has some green incensey touches to it, and it sits on this bed of cedar. It has this sort of powdery smoothness to it as well. It does smell very much. If you didn't know what notes it has, you would say it just smells like incense. In fact, this has a lot of similarity to Lineage from Amouage, now that I'm thinking about it. That one passes for more unisex and I think is more easy for ladies to wear, Lineage. And it has more saltiness to it. It's a little bit more mineral. This is probably deeper into the incense spa oil direction, but I could totally see this filling the air while I'm preparing for yoga in front of last night's burnt out fire to kind of get my head straight and be in a meditative, reflective space in the morning and center myself. This is a very centering fragrance in that way. And I think it's really unique and worth checking out if you are a fan of incense fragrances. And it's, I would say, a smoky incense, not terribly smoky, but there is definitely a smoky aspect to this that is undeniable. Whereas I don't think like Lineage has any smokiness to it. It can come across like that if you interpret incense notes to feel smoky to you. This does have a little bit of smokiness to it, though. And like I said, it sits on this really sort of clean, well-defined bed of cedar and some other like hay-like notes. It's really interesting. I would say this fragrance reminds me of like what we envision exotic lands, wherever that is on the planet, exotic lands to smell like. There's greenness, there's spiciness, there's incense, there's woodiness, all kind of commingling in the air together. Really neat fragrance for your mini yoga retreat in front of your fireplace on Saturday morning. So after you finish your yoga meditation and you have cleared your mind and centered it, it's time to clean. And there's nothing like having an absolutely clean house in the dead of winter when there's cold raging outside, the wind's blowing and it's bitter, and your house is crisp and clean, so fresh and so clean, clean. You know what I mean? Every surface is spotless. There's no dirt anywhere. All things are in their place. Everything is where it belongs. You've done all your laundry. You've cleaned the bathrooms. The floors are spotless. The whole thing. After that, you want the house to smell clean and you want yourself to smell clean like your house does. And this is really an all-weather fragrance. But for that kind of mood, friends, might reach for Lolita Lempicka Green Lover. This had a moment on YouTube probably a couple of years ago, and then people either forgot about it or decluttered it and decided that it wasn't, the it girl anymore. The bottle's a little bit weird. Okay, not too bad, right? But the fragrance itself, I'm like, where do I smell? I love the mintiness of this. It's like minty, fresh, almost toothpaste minty with a fresh sort of soapy smell. There's a muskiness to this. So think musk, mint, vanilla, and a fresh sort of zestiness from citrus all in one. So if you're tired of your deep winter scents, and I have some other deep winter scents that are coming up in this lineup, but if you're tired of that and you want something fresh and uplifting, but that could hold its weight, if you will, in cold weather, this might be a good one to pick up. It's fresh, it's zesty, it's a very clean smelling fragrance, and it's delightful. The musk, sometimes musk and fragrances can feel a little bit overbearing, overpowering, and not clean. This is a very clean, light, fresh, uplifting musk. I will say this isn't for everyone. It's a fairly polarizing fragrance. When people tried it, when it had its little run on YouTube and people went out and started buying it, I would say half of the people enjoyed it and half of the people were like, this smells like toothpaste. I like a good toothpaste smell, and I think it plays really well warmed up on the skin. So Green Lover, really neat little sort of hidden gem fragrance because nobody talks about it anymore. And it should be pretty affordable if you check it out on discount sites. So friends, after you've meditated, after you have cleaned your house, then you go shower and you're ready for your evening affair. And on Saturday evening, the family is getting together. And this is dinner time. There's another event later on that I'm going to tell you about for winter. So it's the winter family occasion dinner. And it's potluck and people are bringing their comfort dishes and there's a lot of stews and that sort of thing. And so you want that sort of like mommy energy, matriarchal scent type of deal. And I'm going to suggest good old Cabotine for that. So I've had this fragrance for a long time. I've worn it for a very long time. And I always joke around and tell people about me wearing this to to an interview. And I got the job, but I think I choked out the interview panel when I wore this one. The thing about this fragrance is it smells so much like a lot of the powerhouse fragrances of the late 80s into the 90s, where those huge, bombastic, loud, room-filling florals were the thing. Everyone had something like that in their collection somewhere. So although this fragrance can be gotten for pretty cheap these days, if I'm not mistaken, let me double check for y'all. I told y'all no lies. This is sitting out on FragranceNet, a full 3.4 ounce bottle, which this is for $16.24 with the coupon. And what I mean by with the coupon, if you search for something through Google, like a fragrance, and then click on the FragranceNet link, it will show up having the discount already applied for you. So shop on FragranceNet that way. There's 35% off of fragrances when you do that. So the thing about this, it is, like I said, a huge, loud floral. And I also tend to think of this fragrance as having this very beautiful greenness that keeps it, even though, I was going to say it keeps it light and bright, but I'm about to lie to y'all because this can be a super cloying fragrance. If you spray a lot of it, you're probably going to kill off all the plants at whatever house you go to during this winter family potluck dinner, friends. You want to keep the plants alive and you don't want to run the little kids off because little kids are very sensitive to smell. And if you wear too much of this, you're going to choke them and everyone else out. So give yourself a couple of sprays of this and you're going to smell like the glory days of perfume. This is a kitchen sink fragrance with so many notes that I can't even describe. Tuberose being one of them, ginger, lots of florals, carnation. There's animalic notes. It doesn't smell animalic to me at all. It's a lot of different things. But for me, a really huge, very luscious, thick floral with a lot of greenness to it as well. I think this is just spectacular, and one of the hidden gems of the fragrance community as a whole. In this day and age, friends, in this day and age, where we are willing to pay $300+ for a bottle of smelly water. I didn't pay that for this. I got this on discount, but you know what I mean. And now we're looking at some fragrances that are in the $400 and $500 range, like that's normal. Get yourself this little $16 gem if you are either on a budget or you just don't feel like putting your hard-earned dollars to super expensive fragrances. I buy it all. I buy the entire range of fragrances and just really enjoy myself. I enjoy myself. I enjoy myself because YOLO, YOLO. But y'all, you can't beat this for $17 in terms of being a powerhouse fragrance that is going to be lovely to others so long as you don't douse yourself. You don't want this to be the blizzard over your body in the winter. You want this to just be a couple of little spritzes so that there's this beautiful floral, like matronly scent, mommy hug coming off of you. Delightful. Let's say you have finished your potluck dinner with the family, you're done doing your sort of mommy duties, and you're ready to have a night out on the town. You want to go have some beverages, a glass of wine, some whiskey on the rocks, or something like that. Perhaps you're going out to a piano bar or a cigar lounge or something with your significant other, and you want to smell rich and decadent and sexy AF. Let's go with Dior Addict. So yes, there have been reformulations of this, and I'm not here to debate which formulation is better than the other. You can do research on your own. I've smelled a number of the formulations and they're all fantastic. The bottle I have in hand smells amazing. This is my scent of the day. I think we might have like a stay-at-home date night tonight, hubby and I, and this is a fragrance that drives him crazy. I've been chased down when I wear this to be told that I smell expensive and luxurious, which is very interesting to me because for me, this fragrance comes across very, very sexy and alluring more than anything else. I don't really think of this as like an expensive smelling fragrance, but that's how it is perceived out there. And it's a cold weather stunner. I mean, this is one that performs beautifully in the winter. It carries well and it fills the cold air with this magnificent, delicious, really decadent vanilla, tonka bean, sandalwood combination. I would say the sandalwood is sort of third in line in terms of a player in the fragrance. The vanilla and the tonka bean are very prominent. There are also some florals, and some people detect a little bit of greenness in the fragrance. They call this a green vanilla. It's not in the sense that like Angelique Noir is. That's a really green vanilla. This maybe has like some, a dash of greenness somewhere in the background. But if you don't know to smell for that, you may not pick it up. For me, this is very much a deep, sexy vanilla fragrance, like in the most grown-up way. There's a lot of vanillas that have hit the market recently that are beautiful. I have shelves full of them, but they're really more sort of gourmand leaning. They're a little bit more youthful and playful. This is definitely Jessica Rabbit, Va Va Voom sexy to me. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful cold weather sexiness. So this is the night on the town, late night with hubby in a cigar lounge. We have never even been to a cigar lounge together. Actually, that's not true. We have, but during the day. We've never gone but just imagine, we're homebodies. We're home, y'all, by if it's 9 o'clock and we're out, it's late. We're home early and we get ready for bed early, go to bed early. But in this fantasy world of these winter moods, we're out late and I've got a really nice sort of fur-ish coat on, whatever your evening beautiful lady coat is, right? You've got your best purse on, your high heels, your dress, and you've got Dior Addict on for your evening on the town. So Friday and Saturday have come and gone. The weather's still freezing cold outside and it's Sunday. And maybe you've gone to church or you did online church or something like that, and you just want to stay home and you want to cook. You want to bake, especially. You want to bake gourmand treats. You want to bake bread. You want to bake any manner of deliciousness for the family who's hanging out at home because they can't go anywhere because it's cold, even though we're going to go somewhere later on in the day with another one of these fragrances. A fragrance I might recommend in a situation like that so that you are smelling fantastic while you're cooking, but you have a little bit of gourmandness to you. This isn't a gourmand fragrance, but there's an aspect of this that feels very sort of sweet and appropriate for a baking environment in the kitchen while you're looking cute. I mean, do you look cute when you bake? Sometimes I do, and other times I bake in pajamas. This really just depends on the mood. But for this fantasy situation, I'm looking cute on Sunday, and I'm wearing Joorie from Kajal. Look at this bottle. Look at this. In fact, the bottle reminds me of a category that's coming up here in a minute. It's giving vampire. Hint, hint about what's to come. But this isn't a vampire-y fragrance. In fact, I might put this in a more amber colored bottle if I were designing this. The fragrance is largely this really amazing deep honey fragrance with beautiful vanilla, some spices, a hint of floral, and a hint of a rose in particular is one of the notes. I would say this fragrance comes across sticky. So when I'm imagining baking breads that have a lot of sweetness to them, like banana breads, maybe something in the neighborhood of panettone. Like if you've had, well, I guess it's panettone. Panettone, if you've had it and you understand like the sweetness from the bread itself, it's a very, very decadent bread and it's got these beautiful, really sweet fruit pieces in it. I know that sounds crazy. When we talk about fruit bread, especially those of us that grew up in the 70s, 80s, etc., and you think about fruit bread for the holidays, fruit cake is what people think of. And it's not, if you haven't had panettone, go to your local Marshalls or TJ Maxx before winter's out. They're probably going to have the panettones on sale there. They come in these huge boxes and they're friggin' amazing. There's a fragrance called Panettone, which is beautiful by Milano Fragranza. Check that out if you like smelling like food. Woo, photorealistic. But for this, if you don't want to smell like food, but you want to complement the food that you're baking, here you go. Beautiful, like I said, really thick honey, vanilla, and tonka bean is the other note that gives it like this airy sort of, tonka bean, it can mimic vanilla. It can come across a little bit as like having a little bit of a cherry nuance to it. It can also have a little bit of a powdery musky edge to it, depending on how it shows up in fragrances. Here, I think it's all of the above. This is super good. You have to like honey. If you're a person that finds that honey smells like in the urine direction, you might not enjoy this. I don't get that from this, but that honey doesn't behave that way mostly on me. Some do, some do, but most honeys behave very well on me and they give you like that sticky, almost like syrupy, resinous type of feel. So yeah, I'm going to be smelling delicious while I bake everything under the sun all day long in my Joorie by Kajal. So after you are done cooking for everyone and making the house smell fantastic with all of those beautiful baked goods, you want to leave all of that. And before dinner, before evening, you want to go out and you want to shop. You want to brave the cold weather and you want to go to your luxury shops. And you want to smell expensive and fantastic as you shop for things you probably have no business buying that cost too much. And you want your fragrance to smell as rich as you want to act like you are that day. And so for that, I have chosen Bronze Tonka from Carolina Herrera. This is part of what's called the Confidential line. All of the bottles that look like this are part of that line from Carolina Herrera. It's her premier line. And if they're in these squatter bottles, they're the Eau de Parfums. And then the taller bottles are Eau de Toilette. I've talked about Virgin Mint, and I've actually talked about a few others in the past from the Eau de Toilette part. This is one of my favorites from the Eau de Parfum line. I haven't smelled a stinker in the lineup. There are some that I love more than others, and one that I recently put on Mercari because it ended up being like not my favorite of that type of scent profile, but there's no denying that it's also a gorgeous fragrance. This one is one that I think made my top 10 maybe last year or the year before. Really beautiful fragrance, and you feel opulent, you feel exotic, you feel elevated, you feel super duper rich girl classy with this fragrance on. I'm imagining a long flowing trench coat. I'm imagining your finest like leather tote bag with your beautiful wallet and your hair's done up. You've got your nice little flats on because you're going shopping, friends, but your flats are even some of the highest quality leather shoes as you stroll into the department store to purchase whatever it is that your heart and your wallet desires. So Bronze Tonka, what does this smell like? Well, it's hard to describe. If you look on Fragrantica, it'll tell you a bunch of stuff. It'll tell you that it has a woodiness, it has oud, a beautiful oud in here. But when people hear oud, they freak out. Oh my God, I'm going to hate it. No, you're not. Oud, coffee, a little bit of coffee, something called cypriol or nagarmatha. I always have trouble saying that word, which is supposed to be like a woody aromatic scent. I don't get anything aromatic in here. I do get some almost like a sticky woodiness is how I would describe this fragrance. And for me, this smells a lot like, imagine if Angel's Share by Kilian was even deeper and darker. It had a dark and like a luxurious edge to it. That's a little bit of how this comes across. There's saffron in the fragrance. This is long wearing and just really like a luxurious exotic scent. And you feel like winter royalty in this one. Long lasting, all of the things, all of the things. This is hard to, by the way, look at this beautiful gradient on this bottle, the ombre effect. These bottles are just like She nailed it. She nailed it. Her design team nailed it with these. This is hard to find. It is temporarily out of stock. I don't know if it's temporary or permanently out of stock on the Carolina Herrera website itself. But friends, if you're interested in a fragrance like this, it is currently available on good old Fragrance Net for about $215. I think these retailed in the like 325 to 350 range US dollars. So 215 for this is a pretty good bargain. And I don't know how much longer this fragrance in particular is going to be around. I just don't know. I don't know if it's like a permanent discontinuation or if it's just temporarily out of stock, but this one has been hanging tough in my collection. If I didn't know any better, I would say this had some really ooey gooey, sticky, like syrupy cinnamon. It's giving me like deep, dark Ojan vibes, but with this just gorgeous oudiness and airy saffron in it that I think are spectacular. So I could just totally see like owning the luxury sections of the stores that you're walking into when you're going to shop with this one. So then, friends, it is Sunday night. Your cold weather weekend is coming to a close. It's getting even colder because it's Sunday night, sun's down, temperatures are dropping, and you want a really strong fragrance to sit on the couch and watch movies. Let's do horror movies. Let's do end of the world, zombie movies, vampire flicks. And you want an equally dark, gothic, vampy kind of a fragrance. Let's go with Agent Provocateur by Agent Provocateur, which is a lingerie company, friends. This is a little bit of an animalic type of fragrance. So if you're familiar with the scent profile, you know that this was pretty edgy when it first came out in 2000. It's mostly a rose and wood fragrance. It comes off sort of really sharp at the beginning, like boom, in your face, really loud, and then settles down into a much more tolerable rosy, woody fragrance with some musk. The thing about this fragrance is it has some animalic touches to it. It can feel very like erotic and carnal, depending on who tries it on. Now, I always tell the story about my older sister giving this to me, my little sister, and my mom when we visited her in London, and this was still a relatively new fragrance on the scene, and we didn't really know what we were getting ourselves into, and we thought it smelled great. We wore it all the time. Now that I have been in this fragrance game for a bit, I understand that this is a little bit more of a sort of a vampy, maybe even skanky fragrance, but it's a good one, and this is why it stayed in my collection, and it has really strong meaning for me because my sister gave it to me. So although this is vampy and skanky, I do associate this with my family time in London, and it reminds me of vampire movies, that sort of like dark gothic aesthetic. And I could see wearing this on a late night, just hanging out on the couch when you want it to smell strong and you wanted something to cut through the cold air, like your house is cold too, and you're under blankets, you wanted something to cut through the air. Very feminine, very rosy. There are other florals in it too, a little bit of spiciness and woodiness. Fantastic fragrance, not for the faint of heart, just like this is not for the faint of heart, just like Cabotine. Actually, all of the fragrances that I mentioned today, except for maybe the marshmallow one, is the only one in this lineup that is maybe a little bit more demure and easily wearable by most. So let me know what you thought of this video concept. Would you like to see more fun videos like this that are off the beaten path and not just your usual like top 10 this or that kinds of fragrances? I certainly had fun thinking about it and filming it and picking out the fragrances that will go with the various moods. So hope you enjoy. Take care, friends. See you in the next video.